From the chlorine used to purify drinking water to the chemicals used in fertilizers, railroads provide a safe solution for moving the hazardous materials essential to our daily lives. U.S. railroads remain a safe choice with mainline accident rates and hazmat accident rates seeing all-time lows. Hazmat safety is a shared responsibility, which is why railroads work closely with their customers, equipment suppliers, government agencies, rail labor, and others to continually advance hazmat safety. More than 99.9% of rail hazmat shipments reach their destination without a release. Shippers are responsible for properly securing tank cars prior to offering them to carriers for shipment. However, sometimes hazardous leaks occur during normal rail transportation. These leaks are called non-accident releases, or NARs. Most of these leaks are small, and the quantity released is generally limited. NARs usually occur from improperly secured or defective valves and fittings. While the amount of product released in an NAR may be small, the consequences can be large. Railroad and industry employees can be injured from exposure to an NAR of hazardous materials. Shipments can be delayed while the car is secured. Local communities may have to expend resources to respond. Rail yards may be shut down. Shippers can be fined and are held financially responsible for all corrective actions including response, remediation, and waste disposal. Most NARs can be prevented using proper loading, unloading, and maintenance procedures, and making employees aware of the effects of NARs. The safe transportation of hazardous materials is a team effort. It takes proper preparation and correct handling to get a shipment from origin to destination safely and without incident. This video is intended to assist shippers and receivers of hazardous materials in reducing NARs by providing a guide for the proper securement of tank cars. Most of this information is based on the recommended industry practices found in the Association of American Railroads, Pamphlet 34, Recommended Methods for the Safe Loading and Unloading of Non-Pressure, General Service, and Pressure Tank Cars. This video is divided into 5 sections. The first will cover general recommended practices for loading and unloading tank cars. The second section will review the proper practices for loading tank cars. The third section will cover recommended practices for unloading tank cars. The fourth will provide a brief overview of the exceptions to work that can be done by a non-certified tank car facility. The final section will include information on additional resources. Please make sure this information is shared with your operations personnel and your customers. This video presents general guidelines for the securement of tank cars and recommended procedures for loading and unloading of the cars. It is not a complete and comprehensive set of methods, instructions, or procedures applicable for all situations and tank car types. Appropriate individual company procedures and applicable government requirements, including U.S. Department of Transportation, Hazardous Materials, or Transport Canada Transportation of Dangerous Goods regulations must be followed. Working together, we can eliminate all NARs. We can get to zero. Most repairs to the tank car tank or tank car valves and fittings must be performed by an AAR-certified tank car facility or mobile unit. Experienced, trained personnel who are knowledgeable of the safety requirements and loading, unloading operations must be used. For loading and unloading of hazardous materials or dangerous goods, these persons must be designated and trained as hazmat or qualified employees per government regulations. Loading, unloading personnel must be responsible for compliance with all company procedures and regulatory requirements during the entire operation. In most cases, first responders are not going to be performing repairs to tank car valves or fittings. Appropriate personal protective equipment, PPE, must be worn during loading, unloading procedures. During the loading-unloading process, cars must be attended by trained personnel or monitored by an approved monitoring system. Do not allow the loading-unloading operation to stand unattended or unmonitored while connections are attached to the car. If necessary to discontinue operations for a period of time, all valves must be closed, all connections removed, and the car must be prepared as if ready for transportation. However, operations can be discontinued on an attended or monitored car by closing valves on the car and closing valves at the facility without disconnecting hoses. To ensure safe operations prior to loading or unloading, ensure blue flag and proper track protection is in place. Put a sign up at both ends of the car if it can be approached from either direction. Prevent entry into the track by locking the switch and/or locking a derail. Check the handbrakes to make certain they have been applied. Do not assume that someone else has set them. Chock wheels in both directions. Verify that safety equipment such as safety showers and eye wash stations are present and operational before conducting loading/unloading activities. Ensure that proper tools are used for loading/unloading operations. They must always be clean and in proper condition. Tank cars containing flammable or combustible gases or liquids should be electrically grounded and bonded during loading and unloading operations. A good safety practice is to check the continuity of the ground prior to loading or unloading. Grounding and bonding of cars carrying other commodities is also encouraged. The loading/unloading area should have adequate lighting and be free of obstacles or unnecessary equipment. Inspect the car for overall integrity and any visible damage. All safety appliances must be in proper condition. The car must show no sign of leakage, have no visible defects, and no product adhering to the exterior of the car. Before loading/unloading, inspect the car for damage and the presence of a defect card. If either is found, contact the car owner for further instructions before loading. Before loading/unloading, each tank car must have an external visual inspection performed, including check tank shell and heads for abrasion, corrosion, cracks, dents, distortions, defects in welds, or any other condition that makes the tank car unsafe. This also includes checking the steps, grab irons, ladders, and platforms to ensure that none are broken, loose, or missing. Look under the car to make sure that brake rigging is not broken or dragging. Inspect the piping, valves, fittings, and gaskets for corrosion, damage, or any other condition that makes the tank car unsafe. Examine pressure relief device, including any frangible disc, to ensure it is present and there is no sign of leakage. Make certain there is no debris such as old seals in the safety valve. If the safety device is a combination safety valve and rupture disc, open the telltale to check that the rupture disc has not failed. If jacketed, the jacket must be weather-tight. No tears, corrosion holes, broken welds, etc. that would allow water to enter and degrade the insulation or thermal protection. Inspect the car for missing or loose bolts or nuts, including the wheel end caps to be certain all 3 bolts are in place and secured with a tab to prevent movement. Conduct a visual inspection of the head shields, double shelf couplers, and bottom fittings protection for conditions that make the tank car unsafe for transportation. Make sure all required markings and stenciling on the tank are legible. Verify that the tank car is a specification tank, AAR, DOT, or TC, and is compatible with the product. Also check that the tank car linings, coatings, or material are compatible with the commodity being transported. Confirm the periodic inspection date markings, inspection, and test intervals are within the prescribed intervals. All tank cars must be qualified periodically. The qualification stencil will show when and where inspections were done, what type of pressure relief device the car is equipped with, any lining or coating, and when requalification is due. When operating gauging devices, top-operated bottom outlet valves, or any other top fittings or closures, loaders, unloaders should not stand directly above or place any part of their body directly above the gauging device, valve, fitting, closure, or pressure relief device. It is strongly recommended that loading, unloading inspections be documented on a checklist or similar method. Shippers must ensure that the tank car selected is authorized for the product being loaded. The tank car must comply with United States Department of Transportation or Transport Canada regulations and/or the AAR's current Manual of Standards and Recommended Practices, Section C, Part 3. The tank car must be of sufficient capacity, both by weight and volume, to contain the quantity of the product being loaded. Applicable requirements such as outage, filling density, or weight restrictions must be met. Consult the appropriate regulations, company policies, and guidelines for specific filling requirements. During the inspection of the car, look for any items that are not typical of standard tank car designs, as they may indicate a security breach. Follow company-specific procedures or guidelines if such items are found. All fittings, valves, gaskets, and fasteners must be in proper condition. For example, not corroded, torn, worn, stripped, loose, missing, or otherwise damaged. Materials contacting the lading must be compatible with the product being loaded into the car. Unless the car is cleaned and purged, ensure that any residue in the car is compatible with the product being loaded. Do not load a car that has an unidentified residue. Visually verify there is no trash or debris, such as old manway gaskets, inside the car, which could cause damage or prevent closure of the bottom outlet valve, BOV, or prevent proper unloading. If equipped with a non-reclosing pressure relief device, also known as a safety vent, the rupture disc must be thoroughly inspected from both sides. Verify that the rupture disc is rated for the correct burst pressure and the gasket is in good condition and in place. Be sure the car is depressurized before attempting to remove the rupture disc. If equipped with a pressure relief valve, the valve must be inspected to ensure no debris is in its discharge area. If a combination pressure relief device is present, each detection device, including, for example, telltale indicator or needle valve, should be checked to determine the integrity of the rupture disc. These devices must be closed prior to transportation. If equipped with a top-operated bottom outlet valve, if practicable, loosen the top packing nut and operate the valve to verify proper operation. If the top-operated bottom outlet valve and packing gland is not operating as designed, close the valve and tighten the top packing nut or stop the operation and contact the car owner to arrange for a certified facility to repair the valve before loading the car. If equipped with a bottom-operated bottom outlet valve, if practicable, operate the BOV to verify proper operation. If product is discovered releasing, close the valve and lock the handle in the closed position and stop the operation. Contact the car owner to arrange the repair of the valve prior to the continuation of offloading the car. If equipped with BOVs, the outlet caps and/or plugs should be removed to check the BOV for leakage. If equipped with an auxiliary valve, open the auxiliary valve with its cap plug removed to check the BOV for leakage. Upon removal of the plug and/or cap or opening of the auxiliary valve, be prepared for the possible release of product from the outlet nozzle and defective or leaking valve. It is recommended that the bottom outlet plug and/or cap remain off its fitting during the entire loading process to ensure that the BOV is not leaking. If equipped with an auxiliary bottom outlet valve, the auxiliary valve should be left open with the plug removed during the entire loading process, ensuring that the primary BOV is not leaking. If equipped with a heating system, thoroughly inspect the exposed parts of the system. If the car is equipped with interior heater coils, remove the caps, be prepared for release of the product, and check for leaks prior to loading the car. If equipped, remove thermometer well cap and the magnetic gauge rod cover cap slowly to determine if there is a leak. Listen for gas pressure releasing. If a leak is detected, do not remove the cap. If a leak is not detected, inspect the O-ring on the thermometer well fitting and the magnetic gauge rod body and replace as required. Verify that adequate ethylene glycol antifreeze mixture is present in the thermometer well to allow for taking an accurate product temperature reading. If equipped with a hinged and bolted manway, thoroughly inspect the manway nozzle and cover assembly, assuring that the manway cover is functional, properly aligned, and centered on the manway nozzle. The hinge pin operates freely, is in place and not bent or damaged, and the eye bolt slots and ears are not bent, worn, damaged, or deformed. The cover must be free of product or other buildup that would prevent proper operation of the eye bolts. The area adjacent to the gasket sealing surface must be free of product or other buildup that would interfere with adjacent surfaces and must be free of corrosion or damage that would allow the unintentional release of product with the cover in the closed and bolted position. The manway nozzle sealing surface is free of gouges, nicks, corrosion, displaced metal, residual product, and remnants of old gaskets that may prevent proper sealing. The manway gasket is properly secured in place, in good condition, not cut or misaligned, does not have permanent compression interfering with proper sealing, is the style and design compatible with the manway nozzle assembly, and is of a material compatible with the product. The eye bolts, nuts, and washers are not bent, damaged, or corroded, and the assemblies are free of excess paint or product. Nuts and washers must be of a size to fully bridge the eye bolt slots, and washers must not be deformed. The manway nozzle is equipped with safety eye bolts at the proper locations opposite the hinge side of the nozzle. Safety eye bolts must be examined and tested to ensure proper operation. Check that the eye bolt pins and hinges are not bent, damaged, deformed, or worn to the extent to prevent free movement of the eye bolts, and ensure improper engagement in the manway cover eye bolt slots. When loading is complete, re-inspect the car for signs of a product release. If there is any indication of release and it cannot be stopped, the car must not be offered for transportation. Document per company procedures the outage level, seal numbers, and product identification information on a proper or suitable form. After the correct volume of product is loaded into the car, close all valves. Verify there is no detectable product release from valves, flanges, threaded connections, and packing glands. Secure all plugs and outlet caps with a suitable tool. Use non-sparking tools if required by company procedures or regulations. Polytetrafluoroethylene (PTFE), Teflon paste, or not more than 3 wraps of PTFE tape have been found to be acceptable materials for use in sealing plugs and caps. Note, in most cases, exterior heater coils should not have caps. Do not offer the car for transportation if any vapor or liquid releases are identified or observed. Verify that the manway cover ears are not deformed or bent out of plane due to the torque applied to the eye bolts. Ensure the eye bolt, and washer are in the proper location, with the washer on the top of the manway cover ears. Lubricate with an appropriate lubricant manway eye bolts as required to maintain serviceability of the bolts and to ensure that proper torque values are achieved. When securing a manway cover, tighten the bolts using the appropriate star pattern and internal company procedures. The use of electric or air-operated impact tools is not recommended. After loading, apply and hand-tighten magnetic gauge cover and thermometer well cap. After the tank car has passed the appropriate leak test, top unloading valve handles that are not enclosed in a protective housing must be removed before the car is offered for transportation. Product spillage on the tank exterior must be removed as DOT regulations prohibit any hazardous materials or hazardous material residue to be on the outside of the tank car. While removing spillage, caution should be taken not to damage any paint, decals, or reflective material. The car must be properly inspected, placarded, and marked before it is offered for transportation, ensuring all stenciling and markings are legible, properly placarded on all sides, placards are not torn, faded, or missing, placards are correct for the product being loaded, BOV cap and plug chains are attached, valve plugs and caps are attached to the car, securement pins are attached to the car in place and properly secured. Inspect all seals before removing them for evidence of tampering. Verify seal numbers match those on the shipping documents. If there is evidence of tampering or the numbers do not match, contact the shipper of the product for guidance. Verify that valves and fittings are closed before removing plugs, caps, or flanges. Remove any dirt or debris from fittings before opening. Verify the contents of the tank car and the receiving vessel are compatible and have acceptable capacity before beginning unloading. If the tank car is a non-pressure car, relieve tank pressure by one or more of the following methods. If equipped with a vapor valve, slowly open the vent valve, preferred method. Or, if not equipped with a vent valve, carefully open the fill hole cover or hinged manway cover. If using the manway cover for pressure relief, use caution when loosening bolts. The bolts by the handle are the safety bolts. Loosen the bolts closest to the hinge by 1 or 2 turns at a time. Then loosen the remaining bolts. If required, send vapors to a vapor handling system. Venting is not necessary if a pressure differential is used to unload the tank car. However, a means to prevent overpressurizing the tank car must be provided. If heater coils are required for unloading, reference Section 3.2 in Pamphlet 34, Recommended Methods for the Safe Loading and Unloading of Non-Pressure, General Service, and Pressure Tank Cars. Loading and unloading with heater coils is not a topic covered in this video. When unloading, confirm the car is properly vented. When unloading through the bottom outlet valve, first verify that the bottom valve is closed before loosening the bottom outlet plug or cap. Be prepared to collect any product trapped in the bottom outlet nozzle upon loosening of the cap plug assembly. Slowly loosen the outlet cap. If more than 2 to 3 quarts are collected in the containment system, there is a probability of bottom outlet valve leakage and/or damage. Do not remove the cap completely. If the valve continues to leak, tighten the cap plug assembly. Inform the tank car owner of the leaking condition and request guidance on actions to take. Before opening the unloading valves, securely attach the transfer system and perform a leak test if possible. If a non-pressure tank car is being unloaded by pumping through the bottom outlet valve or top-mounted liquid valve, a means of preventing vacuum, which may cause a collapse or implosion of the tank, must be provided. Relieve all pressure used to unload the car, except for those products that may have a nitrogen pad applied. A warning should be applied in the manway area to indicate when nitrogen or other non-life supporting gas is present as a pad. If the steam supply is still active, shut it off and remove connections. Check the heating coils for water retention and check for leaks per company procedures. If leaks are found, notify the car owner and/or the shipper. Verify that all valves are closed. Verify that all unloading connections are removed. Secure all fittings, valves, and openings in the appropriate manner. All plugs and outlet caps must be secured with a suitable tool. Use non-sparking tools per company procedures when required. Exceptions. Thermometer and magnetic gauging device covers with O-rings are to be hand-tight, not tool-tight. Prior to release, you must inspect the manway gasket for damage, deterioration, permanent compression, and proper alignment. Tighten the manway bolts using the appropriate pattern and torque values per company procedures. If equipped with a safety vent, the rupture disc must be examined for integrity, proper burst pressure rating, and condition. Product spillage on the tank exterior must be removed as DOT regulations prohibit any hazardous materials or hazardous material residue to be on the outside of the tank car. While removing spillage, caution should be taken not to damage any paint, decals, or reflective material. Ensure proper documentation for transportation is available. Visually inspect the car to verify that no obvious defects are present. The car must be properly inspected, placarded, and marked before it is offered for transportation, ensuring all stenciling and markings are legible, properly placarded on all sides, placards are not torn, faded, or missing, placards are correct for the product being loaded, BOV cap and plug chains are attached, valve plugs and caps are attached to the car, securement pins are attached to the car in place and properly secured. The following are some activities that can be performed by a non-certified tank car facility. Examinations prior to shipping per 49 CFR 173.31d. Conductivity or resistivity examinations of tank car interior linings and interior coatings prior to shipping. Replacement repair of any markings or stencils on tank cars other than those specified in paragraph 3.1.5.5 of the AAR Manual of Standards and Recommended Practices. Replacement of gaskets with the correct size as specified by the equipment owner and compatible with the lading on the following service equipment: hinged and bolted manway cover, fill port cover, bottom outlet cap, secondary closure, secondary fitting, secondary valve, and quick disconnect dust cap. Replacement of O-rings with the correct size as specified by the equipment owner on gauging device caps and thermometer well housing tubes. Replacement of the ruptured disc, including the rupture disc gasket, with the correct dimensional size and pressure rating as specified by the equipment owner and compatible with the lading. Replacement of manway eye bolts, bottom outlet valve caps, magnetic gauging device rods, chains, secondary closures, secondary fittings, and secondary valves as specified by the original or alternative approved design. Since the loading and unloading of tank cars involves the opening of valves, fittings, flanges, caps, plugs, and other closures, there is always a possibility of product spillage or leakage. While this should be minimized, the loader/unloader must be prepared to capture, collect, and dispose of any spilled or leaked product in an environmentally acceptable manner. If the volume of released product meets regulatory requirements, for example, reportable quantity threshold, agency notifications and specific remediation actions may be triggered or required. According to DOT regulations, if a tank car leaks in transit during normal rail operations, it is assumed that the car was not properly prepared and inspected prior to being released for transportation. The shipper may be liable for all costs associated with the response and cleanup and can be subject to penalties for failure to comply with the requirements. For further information, refer to the U.S. Department of Transportation requirements found in 49 CFR sections 173.31 and 174.67 of the Hazardous Material Regulations. In Canada, these requirements are found in Canadian General Standards Board 43.147, Part 4, sections 30.14 through 30.17. The Association of American Railroads Manual of Standards and Recommended Practices M-1002 contains information on authorized valves and fittings and maintenance requirements. There are additional regulations, standard references, and websites that may be beneficial to you and your company regarding recommended practices on procedures for loading, unloading tank cars. Pamphlet 34, Recommended Methods for the Safe Loading and Unloading of Non-Pressure General Service and Pressure Tank Cars, provides a list of these additional resources. Remember, working together, we can eliminate all non-accidental releases. We can get to zero.